The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I stared at my computer screen reviewing quarterly financial reports for Pinnacle Financial Group in downtown Phoenix. My phone buzzed with Dad's number flashing across the display. I answered casually, expecting our usual brief conversation about weekend plans or Mom's garden updates. Instead, his voice carried an unnaturally cheerful tone that immediately set me on edge. "Richard, son, we need to tell you something important. Your mother and I used 95% of your savings account to purchase Jessica and Brandon's new house in Scottsdale." The words hit me like physical blows, each syllable crushing my chest. Time seemed to freeze as Dad's words echoed in my mind. 95% of my savings. The account I'd spent 12 grueling years building from absolutely nothing. I could hear Mom's voice chiming in through the speakerphone, her tone disgustingly sweet and self-righteous. "Jessica really deserves this help, honey. She's starting a family and you know how important that is. You've always been so good with money and you're still single, so you don't really need all those funds sitting around doing nothing." My throat constricted as the reality crashed over me. $247,000. Gone. Vanished. Stolen by the very people who taught me the importance of saving and hard work. I'd started at Pinnacle Financial with a measly salary of $32,000, living on ramen noodles, and sharing cramped apartments with 3 roommates. Every overtime hour, every skipped vacation, every careful budget calculation had been building toward financial security. Now my current salary of $98,000 felt meaningless against this devastating loss. The memory of 6 months ago flooded back with sickening clarity. The drunk driver who slammed into my Honda Civic at 50 miles per hour, sending me spinning across 3 lanes of traffic on Interstate 10. 3 weeks in the hospital with internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a concussion that left me barely able to think straight. Mom and Dad had visited daily, bringing homemade soup and concerned expressions. When the doctors explained I'd need someone to handle my finances during recovery, I'd trusted them without hesitation. "Just pay my bills and handle the insurance claims," I'd told Dad, signing the limited power of attorney papers while hooked to IV tubes and heart monitors. "Everything's automated anyway. The account has enough to cover 6 months of expenses." What a naive fool I'd been. When did this happen? I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible over the office noise around me. Dad's pause stretched uncomfortably long. "Well, the paperwork was finalized on Tuesday. We wanted to make sure everything went smoothly before telling you. The cashier's check was processed for $234,650. Tuesday, 3 days ago. They'd waited until Friday afternoon to inform me, ensuring the transaction was completely irreversible. The calculation was cold and methodical. These weren't impulsive grandparents helping their daughter. This was premeditated theft, orchestrated with precision timing. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop's banking app, praying this was some elaborate joke. The account balance stared back at me, $12,347.23. The rest had vanished into my sister's real estate dreams. "Richard, are you still there?" Mom's voice carried a hint of impatience, as if I was being unreasonable for not immediately celebrating their generosity. "How could you do this to me?" The question escaped as a broken whisper. "Oh, sweetheart, don't be dramatic. Family helps family. Jessica needs stability for her children, and you've always been the responsible one. You'll rebuild that account in no time with your fancy job and all. Jessica, my 31-year-old sister who'd never held a job for more than 18 months, who'd declared bankruptcy twice, who'd asked me for emergency loans 17 times in the past decade. The same sister who'd recently been posting Facebook photos of expensive restaurants and designer handbags while claiming she couldn't afford basic necessities. I remembered her mentioning a specific house in Scottsdale last month during our awkward family dinner. "It's perfect for raising kids," she'd gushed. 4 bedrooms, granite countertops, a pool in the backyard. The sellers are motivated, but we just don't have the down payment saved up yet. The pieces click together with nauseating clarity. This wasn't spontaneous generosity. This was a calculated heist planned while I was fighting for my life in intensive care. "I need to call you back," I managed before hanging up. Sarah appeared at my cubicle within minutes, her concerned expression shifting to alarm as she saw my face. My girlfriend of 2 years had an uncanny ability to read my emotions, probably developed during her work as a paralegal at Henderson and Associates. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I explained everything in halting sentences, watching her dark eyes widen with disbelief and then narrow with anger. Sarah's background in legal documentation meant she immediately grasped the severity of the situation. "This is theft, Richard. Plain and simple. Power of attorney doesn't give them permission to steal your life savings for someone else's benefit. We need to call Thomas immediately." Thomas McKenna, my lawyer and Sarah's boss, had handled my car accident case with ruthless efficiency. If anyone could navigate this nightmare, he could. I dialed my parents again, my voice steady despite the rage building inside my chest. Dad answered on the first ring, probably expecting gratitude. "I want every penny returned to my account by Monday morning." "Richard, that's not possible. The money's already been used for the down payment and closing costs. The house is in Jessica's name now. We thought you'd be happy to help your sister achieve the American dream. You stole from me. We helped family. There's a difference. Jessica has 2 children to think about, and you're just thinking about yourself like always." The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the middle of a busy office surrounded by colleagues who had no idea my world had just collapsed completely. The drive to my parents' house in Tempe felt like traveling through a fever dream. Sarah gripped the passenger seat handle as I navigated Friday afternoon traffic, her legal mind already formulating strategies and precedents. The familiar neighborhood where I'd grown up now seemed foreign and hostile, lined with modest ranch homes and dying palm trees. Dad's gray Ford pickup sat in the driveway alongside Jessica's white SUV and Brandon's lifted Toyota Tacoma. Through the living room window, I could see silhouettes moving around animated conversation, accompanied by what sounded like celebration. Sarah squeezed my shoulder as we approached the front door. "Remember, stay calm. Let them talk. Everything they say could be used in court." The door swung open before I could knock, revealing Jessica's triumphant grin and a champagne flute in her manicured hand. Her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves, and she wore a new dress I'd never seen before. Designer expensive, completely inappropriate for someone who'd claimed financial desperation just weeks ago. Well, if it isn't my formerly rich brother," she announced loudly, stepping aside with exaggerated courtesy. "Come in and celebrate our new home purchase." The living room buzzed with excited energy. Mom sat on the couch scrolling through the real estate photos on her tablet, pointing out granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Dad stood by the mantel holding a beer, his expression uncomfortable but defiant. Brandon lounged in the recliner, scrolling through his phone with a smirk plastered across his face. "Richard." Mom jumped up, attempting to hug me while I stood rigid. "Isn't this exciting? Jessica found the most beautiful house, and we were able to help make it happen. You should be proud to contribute to your sister's future. Contribute." The word came out sharper than I'd intended. I never agreed to contribute anything. Jessica laughed a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, poor little Richard. Did Mom and Dad not ask your permission first? How terrible for you." She took another sip of champagne, her eyes sparkling with malicious glee. "You worked so hard for what's sitting alone in your boring condo counting your money like some sad miser. Well, guess what? You don't have a single penny left. All those years of being the perfect son, and now you're broke just like everyone else." Brandon chuckled from his chair, not bothering to look up from his phone. Maybe now you'll understand what it's like to struggle like normal people do every day. Must be nice coming down from your high horse. I stared at my sister, searching for any trace of remorse or acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Instead, I found only satisfaction and cruelty. This woman who'd cried on my shoulder countless times about financial troubles, who'd begged me for help with car payments and medical bills, now stood before me celebrating my financial ruin. Jessica, I spent 12 years saving that money. 12 years of 60-hour work weeks, skipped vacations, and living below my means. That wasn't just money sitting around. That was my future, my security, my peace of mind. She rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please. You live like a monk anyway. When's the last time you took a real vacation? When's the last time you bought anything fun? You were hoarding that money like some kind of dragon, and now it's actually being used for something important. Important. Sarah stepped forward, her voice ice cold. Stealing from her brother is important. Nobody asked you, paralegal girl, Jessica snapped. This is family business. Mom intervened with her usual peacemaking tone. Richard, honey, you have to understand. Jessica has 2 children to provide for. Little Emma is starting kindergarten, and baby Noah needs a stable environment. This house has a backyard where they can play safely, good schools in the district, and enough space for the family to grow. I told Mom and Dad you'd never miss that money since you live so cheaply anyway. Jessica added, her voice dripping with vindictive pleasure. You drive a 7-year-old Honda, you live in that tiny condo, and you never spend money on anything fun. I figured you were just saving it out of habit, not for any real purpose. The cruelty of her words hit me like physical blows. She'd orchestrated this theft. She'd specifically requested that they target my savings calculatingly, dismissing my hard work and sacrifice as meaningless hoarding. And the best part, Jessica continued pulling out her iPhone with a wicked grin, is that I'm recording your pathetic reaction right now. My friends are going to absolutely love seeing Mr. Perfect falling apart when he realizes he's not better than the rest of us anymore. She held the phone up, capturing my stunned expression and Sarah's outraged face. Say something for the camera, Richard. Tell everyone how it feels to finally be knocked down to our level. Dad shifted uncomfortably, his beer can crushing slightly in his grip. Jessica, maybe that's enough. No, it's not enough, she shot back. He's spent years acting like he's so much better than us with his college degree and his fancy job. Looking down on Brandon and me because we haven't been as successful. Well, who's successful now? We just bought a $400,000 house with a pool in Scottsdale, and Mr. Financial Genius is broke. Brandon finally looked up from his phone, adding his own twist of the knife. The house has 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, and a backyard pool. Brand new kitchen with an island and everything. Thanks for the down payment, brother-in-law. Something shifted inside me as I watched my family revel in my apparent destruction. A strange calm settled over my racing thoughts, and I felt my lips curve into a slight smile. The absurdity of their celebration, their complete ignorance of what they'd actually accomplished, suddenly struck me as darkly hilarious. A soft laugh escaped my throat. Jessica's triumphant expression faltered. What's so funny? You should be crying right now, not laughing. I shook my head slowly, the laughter building despite myself. You really have no idea what you've done, do you? We know exactly what we did, Mom said defensively. We helped Jessica secure a beautiful home for her family. No, I said, my voice steady and strangely cheerful. You really truly have no idea. The laughter died in my throat as the full weight of the situation crashed over me like a tsunami. My knees buckled and I sank to the living room floor, my head dropping into my hands, as a devastating realization seemed to consume me completely. The beige carpet felt rough against my palms, as I struggled to process what appeared to be the total annihilation of everything I'd worked toward. "I'm ruined," I whispered, my voice cracking with what sounded like genuine despair. Completely and utterly ruined. The celebration in the room ground to an uncomfortable halt. Jessica's phone slowly lowered as my apparent breakdown unfolded before her lens. Mom set down her champagne flute, her triumphant expression shifting to concern as she watched her son seemingly crumble. "Richard, honey, it's not that bad," she said tentatively. "You're young, you have a good job, you can rebuild." Rebuild. I looked up at her with what appeared to be hollow eyes. "Mom, you don't understand. I'll have to sell my condo, my car, everything I own just to survive the next few months. My credit cards are already maxed out from the medical bills insurance didn't cover. I was depending on that savings account to get me through this financial crisis." Sarah sat beside me on the carpet, her arm around my shoulders in what looked like genuine comfort. Her paralegal training helped her follow my lead perfectly, her own expression shifting to devastated sympathy. "The wedding," she said softly, her voice breaking slightly. "We'll have to postpone everything. Cancel the venue, return the ring. Tell everyone we can't afford to get married anymore." Jessica's face went pale. For the first time since we'd arrived, doubt crept into her expression. "Wedding. You two were engaged." I nodded miserably, pulling an imaginary ring box from my pocket and staring at it with apparent heartbreak. "I was planning to propose next month. Had the ring picked out, the restaurant reserved, everything planned perfectly. Now, I can't even afford a decent dinner, let alone a wedding." Brandon shifted uncomfortably in his recliner, his smug expression fading as he watched me apparently disintegrate. "Dude, we didn't know about any engagement plans. Why would you?" I asked bitterly. "You never asked what I was saving for. You just assumed I was hoarding money for no reason." I stood up shakily, walking to the window, and staring out at the neighborhood where I'd learned to ride my bike and played Little League baseball. "I'll have to move back in with you guys." I continued, my voice hollow with resignation. "Can't afford my mortgage payments without that savings account. My condo will be foreclosed within 6 months. Maybe I can sleep on your new couch, Jessica, since my money helped buy it." The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Dad cleared his throat nervously, setting his beer on the mantel with shaking hands. "Son, maybe we moved too quickly. Perhaps there's a way to work something out." I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and broken. "Work what out? The money's gone. The house is purchased. Jessica's already celebrating her victory over me." I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I pretended to dial my bank. "Yes, this is Richard Collins. I need to speak to someone about emergency loan options. My parents stole my savings and I'm facing financial ruin." My voice carried through the silent room as I continued the fabricated conversation. "No, I understand you can't approve anything today. Yes, I'll need to come in Monday with documentation." Sarah squeezed my shoulder as I ended the fake call, her performance of devastated sympathy absolutely convincing. "What did they say? They need 3 days to review my financial situation. If my credit score has dropped too much, they might not approve even a small emergency loan." I turned to face my family, my expression defeated and broken. "I might have to borrow money just to eat next week." Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her celebration completely forgotten. "Richard, we never intended for things to be this severe for you. What did you think would happen?" I demanded, my apparent desperation making my voice crack. "You took 95% of everything I had. Did you imagine I was secretly rich, that I had hidden accounts somewhere?" I began pacing the living room, running my hands through my hair in obvious distress. Jessica set down her champagne glass, her earlier mockery replaced by growing unease. "But you make good money at your job. Your salary should cover your basic expenses." My salary was designed to supplement my savings, not replace them. I explained, my voice taking on the edge of panic. I've been making extra mortgage payments to build equity. My car loan has 18 months remaining. I pay for my own health insurance, life insurance, and I've been contributing the maximum to my retirement account. Without that savings buffer, I'm living paycheck to paycheck like everyone else. The truth of my financial literacy seemed to make the theft even more devastating. These weren't the rantings of someone who'd been careless with money. I was a financial professional who'd built a carefully balanced budget, now completely destroyed by their betrayal. I'll have to call my boss Monday morning. I continued, apparently spiraling deeper into despair. Ask for a salary advance just to make this month's rent. 34 years old, and I'll be begging for financial help like a college student. While speaking, I discreetly sent a text message to Thomas. Execute Plan B immediately. Within moments, Sarah's phone buzzed with a response. She read the message quickly, showing me the screen. Documentation ready, authorities notified. Perfect timing. I pretended to dial another number, my hands visibly shaking as I held the phone to my ear. Hello, Mr. Morrison. This is Richard Collins. I know it's Friday evening, but I'm facing a family emergency that might affect my work performance next week. I paused, listening to dial tone while crafting my performance. My parents accessed my savings account without authorization and withdrew almost everything. I might need to take a second job or work overtime just to stay financially afloat. I wanted to give you advance notice in case this impacts my responsibilities at Pinnacle Financial. Jessica stood abruptly, her designer dress suddenly seeming inappropriate for the gravity of the situation. Richard, stop. This is getting too serious. Too serious. I ended my fake call and stared at her with what appeared to be broken disbelief. Jessica, you celebrated destroying my financial security. You recorded my reaction to share with your friends for entertainment. You mocked 12 years of hard work and sacrifice, and now it's too serious. Brandon cleared his throat nervously. Maybe we should figure out a payment plan or something. Work out a way to pay you back over time. Pay me back with what I asked desperately. You just bought a house you couldn't afford without stealing my money. Your mortgage payments are probably more than your combined income. Where exactly will the repayment funds come from? The family exchanged uncomfortable glances as the long-term consequences of their actions began to sink in. They'd been so focused on acquiring the house that they'd never considered the ethical implications or practical aftermath. I trusted you, I said quietly, my voice barely audible. After my accident, when I was vulnerable and scared, I trusted you to protect my interests. Instead, you used my vulnerability to rob me blind. I walked slowly toward the front door, Sarah following close behind. As I reached for the handle, I turned back to face my family one final time. I guess I should thank you, I said with bitter resignation. You've taught me exactly who my real family is, and it's not any of you. I paused at the doorway, my hand resting on the brass handle, as a strange transformation began to wash over me. The defeated posture gradually straightened, and the broken desperation in my voice slowly shifted to something colder and more calculating. The performance of devastation dissolved like morning fog, replaced by the calm, analytical demeanor of a financial professional who just completed a successful investigation. Actually, I said, turning back to face my family with a completely different energy, before I leave, there's something you should know about my professional background. Jessica blinked in confusion, still holding her phone but no longer recording. What are you talking about? I work for Pinnacle Financial Group as a senior fraud investigator, specializing in embezzlement and financial crimes. I explained, my voice taking on the measured tone I used when testifying in court. For the past 16 months, I've been the lead analyst on 43 cases involving family financial manipulation, elder abuse, and power of attorney violations. Dad's beer can slipped from his fingers, clattering to the hardwood floor and spilling foam across Mom's carefully maintained living room. Richard. What does that have to do with anything? It means I'm exceptionally skilled at detecting when family members are planning to steal from each other. I continued walking back into the center of the room with newfound confidence. And for the past 4 months, I've suspected you were planning something exactly like this. The color drained from Jessica's face as she processed my words. You suspected? What do you mean, you suspected? I pulled out my phone, opening the banking app with deliberate precision. The account you accessed contained $12,300, not $247,000. You stole $12,000 from a carefully constructed honeypot account designed specifically to catch you in the act. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's hand flew to her chest as if she was having trouble breathing. Brandon slowly sat up in his recliner, his casual smugness evaporating completely. That's impossible, Jessica stammered. I saw the bank statements. The balance was over $200,000. Fabricated, I replied calmly, showing them the real account balance on my phone. Created specifically to test how far you were willing to go when you thought I was vulnerable. The bank statements you saw were professionally doctored documents designed to look authentic. Sarah stepped forward, her paralegal mask finally dropping to reveal someone who'd been in on the plan from the beginning. I helped create those fake statements using software from our law firm. Richard wanted to see if his family would actually steal from him during a medical crisis. The family stared at us in growing horror as the true scope of the deception became clear. They'd been manipulated by someone who understood financial fraud better than they could imagine. You set us up, Dad whispered, his face ashen. You deliberately tricked us. I documented your criminal behavior, I corrected. There's a significant difference. You made the choice to steal from me. I simply created an environment where your true intentions would be revealed and preserved as evidence. I began pacing the room again, but this time with the confidence of someone delivering a professional presentation. Over the past 4 months, I've recorded 17 phone conversations where Jessica asked pointed questions about my finances. I've preserved 14 text messages where she suggested ways our parents could help her with housing costs. I've documented 6 occasions where she specifically mentioned accessing my savings account during family dinners. Jessica's legs gave out and she collapsed onto the couch next to Mom. You've been recording us for months. Arizona is a one-party consent state, Sarah explained, pulling a digital recorder from her purse. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, it's perfectly legal and admissible in court. Brandon leaned forward, his face pale and sweaty. Court? What are you talking about? I smiled for the first time since entering the house, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Conspiracy to commit fraud, abuse of power of attorney, theft by deception, and elder abuse statutes. In Arizona, these charges carry sentences ranging from probation to 5 years in state prison depending on the amount stolen and the sophistication of the crime. But we're not elderly, Mom protested weakly. The power of attorney abuse statutes apply to any vulnerable adult, including those temporarily incapacitated by medical trauma, I explained patiently. My hospitalization and recovery period qualify me as a protected person under Arizona revised statutes. Dad stumbled backward until he hit the mantel, his face gray with shock. Son, we never meant for this to become a legal matter. We were just trying to help Jessica by stealing from me, I said flatly. Let me walk you through what actually happened here. You used legal documents I signed in good faith during a medical emergency to access my personal funds. You then transferred those funds to benefit a third party without my knowledge or consent. Jessica specifically requested that you target my savings, demonstrating premeditation and conspiracy. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through carefully organized files. I have photographic evidence of Jessica researching the Scottsdale property 6 weeks before the theft occurred. I have recorded conversations where she calculated how much money she would need from my account. I have text message screenshots where she discussed the timing of the theft to ensure maximum impact. Jessica buried her face in her hands, her celebration completely forgotten. This can't be happening. We bought the house. We signed contracts. Our kids' bedrooms are already painted. Which brings us to another problem, Sarah added professionally. The down payment for your house consists of stolen funds, which makes the entire property purchase legally questionable. Depending on how the criminal case proceeds, you might be forced to forfeit the house and face additional penalties. The room felt like a tomb, as the family absorbed the magnitude of their situation. What had started as a celebration of successful manipulation was rapidly becoming a nightmare of legal consequences they'd never considered. Brandon's voice came out as a whisper. What happens now? I checked my watch with practiced calm. My attorney, Thomas McKenna, should be arriving with Phoenix Police Department officers in approximately 15 minutes. They'll want to take formal statements from everyone involved and explain the charges being filed. Charges? Mom's voice cracked. Richard, surely. We can work this out as a family. There's no need to involve the authorities. The authorities were involved the moment you committed fraud. I replied without emotion. This stopped being a family matter when you chose to steal from me instead of asking for help. The sound of car doors slamming in the driveway announced the arrival of law enforcement. Through the window, I could see Thomas McKenna's black sedan followed by 2 Phoenix PD cruisers. One final piece of evidence, I said, holding up Sarah's phone. This entire conversation has been recorded. Your admissions of guilt, your lack of remorse, and your detailed descriptions of the crime will make the prosecutor's job considerably easier. As the doorbell rang, I looked at each family member one final time. You taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Now you're about to learn what justice looks like when you betray someone who actually knows how to fight back. Thomas McKenna entered the living room flanked by 2 uniformed Phoenix police officers, their professional demeanor immediately shifting the atmosphere from family drama to criminal investigation. Detective Maria Santos, a seasoned financial crimes specialist I'd worked with on previous cases, nodded to me with familiar respect before turning her attention to my family. Mr. Collins, we've reviewed the evidence you submitted, she said, pulling out an official notepad. The documentation appears comprehensive and well organized. We'll need to take formal statements from all parties involved. Before we proceed, Thomas interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent 30 years practicing criminal law. I want to clarify the scope of Mr. Collins' actual financial situation for everyone present. He opened his leather briefcase, retrieving a thick folder of official documents. Richard's net worth is currently $823,000, distributed across multiple investment accounts, retirement funds, real estate holdings, and cryptocurrency portfolios. Jessica's gasp echoed through the silent room. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the coffee table in the explosion of crystal and wine. That's impossible, Brandon whispered. He said he was broke. He said you ruined him financially. Thomas smiled coldly, spreading certified bank statements across the coffee table like playing cards. Mr. Collins holds accounts at 7 different financial institutions. His primary investment portfolio with Merrill Lynch contains $294,000. His retirement accounts with Fidelity and Vanguard total $167,000. His cryptocurrency holdings, primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum, are valued at approximately $112,000 as of this morning. I stepped forward, my professional demeanor now fully revealed. Only complete financial amateurs keep all their money in a single checking account. I've been diversifying my assets since my second year at Pinnacle Financial. Detective Santos continued taking notes while Thomas laid out additional documentation. Mr. Collins also owns rental property in Tempe, valued at $145,000, currently generating monthly income of $1,200 after taxes and expenses. Dad slumped against the mantel, his face gray with shock and growing comprehension. You mean the account we accessed was bait, I finished calmly. A professionally designed financial trap used to document criminal behavior. My colleagues at Pinnacle Financial have used similar techniques in 87 fraud investigations over the past 3 years. Sarah pulled additional evidence from her briefcase, organizing documents with practiced efficiency. Richard consulted with the FBI Financial Crimes Division when designing this investigation. Agent Patricia Wong from the Phoenix Field Office provided technical guidance on evidence preservation and legal protocols. The mention of federal involvement sent Jessica into obvious panic. The FBI. Richard, this is your family. How could you involve the FBI against your own sister? You involved yourself the moment you chose to commit federal crimes, Detective Santos replied sharply. Wire fraud, conspiracy, and abuse of power of attorney fall under federal jurisdiction when the amount exceeds certain thresholds. Thomas handed me a thick legal document, its official seals and signatures immediately recognizable as court paperwork. Criminal charges were formally filed this morning. Conspiracy to commit fraud in the first-degree theft by deception and abuse of vulnerable adult statutes. All felony charges carrying potential sentences of 2 to 5 years in state prison. Brandon's employer would receive notification of his involvement in financial crimes within 48 hours, as required by Arizona law for anyone working in positions requiring financial responsibility. His job as a bank loan officer would almost certainly be terminated immediately upon conviction. The civil lawsuit is separate, I added, accepting another document from Thomas. $50,000 in damages for emotional distress, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional harm. These charges will proceed regardless of the criminal case outcome. Jessica's new house purchase faced immediate legal challenge. The down payment, consisting of stolen funds, made the entire transaction potentially fraudulent, requiring court review and possible property forfeiture. We've already contacted the real estate company and title agency. Sarah explained her paralegal expertise evident in every carefully chosen word. They're cooperating fully with the investigation. Your mortgage approval was based on fraudulent down payment documentation which violates federal banking regulations. Mom began crying softly, her celebration completely forgotten as the legal reality crashed over her. Richard, we're your parents. Surely you don't want to see us go to prison. You didn't want to see me financially destroyed, I replied without emotion. Everyone makes choices. These are the consequences of yours. Detective Santos closed her notepad, having gathered enough preliminary information to proceed. We'll need everyone to come to the station for formal interviews. The district attorney's office is treating this as a high-priority case due to the sophistication of the crime and quality of evidence. Thomas gathered his documents efficiently, his satisfaction evident in every movement. Richard's professional reputation in financial crimes investigation gives this case significant credibility. Judges and prosecutors tend to take fraud seriously when it's documented by someone with his credentials. The Phoenix Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit had dealt with family theft cases for decades, but rarely with evidence this comprehensive or professionally assembled. My background in fraud investigation meant every piece of evidence was collected and preserved according to the highest legal standards. One more thing. I said, pulling out my final piece of documentation. The restitution amount has been calculated with interest and penalties. $12,000 in principal plus statutory interest, legal fees, court costs, and civil damages. Total repayment obligation $47,600. Jessica's face went ashen as she processed the mathematics. $47,000. We don't have $47,000. We just bought a house. Arizona law allows wage garnishment asset seizure and forced property sales to satisfy court-ordered restitution, Detective Santos explained matter-of-factly. The state will recover these funds one way or another. As the officers prepared to escort my family to the police station for formal processing, I felt a profound sense of professional satisfaction. Justice wasn't emotional revenge. It was systematic, methodical, and absolutely thorough. You know what the beautiful irony is, I said, as handcuffs clicked around Dad's wrists. If you'd simply asked me for help with Jessica's down payment, I probably would have given her $10,000 as a gift. Instead, your greed and deception have cost you everything. The house fell silent, except for the sound of police radios and official procedures. My family's attempt to steal my security had instead revealed their complete lack of character while documenting their criminal behavior with courtroom precision. Professional fraud investigation wasn't just my career. It had become my protection against the people who should have protected me. The Maricopa County Superior Court moved with unusual speed thanks to the overwhelming evidence Thomas had assembled. Within 10 days of the arrests, my family faced formal arraignment hearings that would determine their immediate legal fate. I sat in the gallery wearing my best suit, watching the people who'd raised me shuffle into the defendant's table wearing orange jumpsuits in defeat. Judge Patricia Morrison, known throughout Phoenix legal circles for her no-nonsense approach to financial crimes, reviewed the case file with obvious interest. Her 23 years on the bench had exposed her to countless family betrayal cases, but rarely with evidence this professionally documented. Mr. and Mrs. Collins. She addressed my parents with stern disapproval. The court has reviewed the evidence submitted by the prosecution. The recordings, financial documentation, and testimony from your son paint a picture of calculated deception and abuse of trust that frankly disgusts this court. Dad's attorney, an overworked public defender named Robert Chen, attempted to argue for leniency based on their clean criminal records and advanced age. Judge Morrison's expression remained unmoved as she listened to his plea for probation. Your Honor, my clients are first-time offenders who made a serious error in judgment during a family crisis. They deeply regret their actions and are prepared to make full restitution. Mr. Chen, the judge replied coldly, your clients didn't make an error in judgment. They committed premeditated fraud against their own son while he was recovering from a traumatic accident. The level of planning and deception demonstrated in this case shows clear criminal intent. Jessica's arraignment proved even more damaging to her case. The recordings of her specifically requesting the theft and mocking my financial destruction played through the courtroom speakers her cruelty, preserved in digital clarity for everyone to witness. Her attorney, Maria Santos, attempted to portray Jessica as a desperate mother trying to provide stability for her children. The judge's response cut through the excuse like a blade. Ms. Collins Peterson, this court has heard your recorded statement celebrating your brother's financial ruin. You filmed his apparent distress for entertainment purposes. You showed no remorse for devastating someone who'd helped your family repeatedly. This wasn't desperation, this was malicious vindictiveness. The guilty pleas came within days. Dad and Mom accepted a deal offering 2 years probation community service and full restitution in exchange for avoiding jail time. Their retirement plans, already modest, were effectively destroyed by legal fees and repayment obligations that would consume their fixed income for years. Jessica's case proved more complex due to her leadership role in orchestrating the crime. Her recorded statements demonstrated clear premeditation, and lack of remorse making plea negotiations difficult. She eventually accepted 18 months supervised probation, mandatory financial counseling, and joint responsibility for all restitution payments. Brandon's involvement cost him his career immediately. First, National Bank terminated his employment the day after his arrest, citing violation of their ethics policies regarding financial crimes. His mortgage lending license was revoked by the Arizona Department of Real Estate, effectively ending his ability to work in banking or real estate industries. The civil lawsuit proceeded parallel to criminal charges, adding another layer of financial devastation to their situation. Thomas filed motions seeking maximum damages allowed under Arizona law, arguing that the emotional trauma and professional disruption justified significant compensation beyond mere restitution. Your Honor, Thomas addressed Judge Morrison during the civil hearing, my client's trust in his family was weaponized against him during his most vulnerable period. The psychological impact of this betrayal extends far beyond the immediate financial theft. Expert testimony from Dr. Elizabeth Harper, a psychiatrist specializing in family trauma, detailed the long-term emotional consequences of familial financial abuse. Her professional assessment added credibility to our damages claim and helped justify the $50,000 judgment we ultimately received. The real estate consequences proved devastating for Jessica and Brandon. Their Scottsdale house purchase, tainted by the criminal down payment, faced immediate legal scrutiny from both the mortgage company and title insurance providers. Federal banking regulations required investigation of any property purchase involving fraudulent funds. Wells Fargo, their mortgage provider, initiated foreclosure proceedings within 60 days of the criminal conviction. The bank's legal team argued that the loan approval was obtained through fraudulent documentation invalidating the entire mortgage agreement. Jessica and Brandon were forced to surrender the house keys and forfeit their down payment investment. Local news coverage added another dimension of consequence my family hadn't anticipated. Channel 12's investigative reporter David Kim covered the case as an example of sophisticated family financial fraud. The story aired during primetime news featuring courthouse footage of my family in handcuffs and details of their elaborate theft scheme. This case demonstrates how family members can exploit trust and medical vulnerability to commit serious financial crimes, Kim reported while standing outside the courthouse. The victim's professional expertise in fraud investigation helped build an airtight case that prosecutors called exemplary. My colleagues at Pinnacle Financial viewed the case as a career-defining success that enhanced my reputation throughout Arizona's financial crimes community. District Attorney Sarah Williams personally commended my evidence-gathering techniques during a professional conference on white-collar crime prevention. Richard Collins turned personal victimization into a masterclass in fraud investigation, Williams told the assembled prosecutors and investigators. His methodology should be studied by everyone working financial crimes cases involving family perpetrators. The professional recognition led to immediate career advancement. Pinnacle Financial promoted me to Senior Fraud Investigation Manager with oversight of the entire Phoenix metropolitan area. My salary increased to $135,000 annually, with performance bonuses that could add another $20,000 based on successful case resolutions. Speaking engagements at financial conferences throughout the Southwest became a regular source of additional income and professional development. My presentation on family financial fraud prevention was requested by the Arizona Bankers Association, the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, and the National Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. Family members often have the greatest access to exploit their victims. I explained to audiences of banking professionals and law enforcement officers. The key to prevention is documentation, professional guidance, and willingness to treat family crimes with the same seriousness as stranger fraud. 6 months after the arrests, my family's financial destruction was complete and permanent. Dad's part-time consulting income was garnished to pay restitution. Mom's Social Security benefits were partially seized by court order. Jessica worked 2 minimum-wage jobs while living in a cramped apartment, her dreams of suburban prosperity permanently shattered. Brandon's unemployment stretched beyond a year as background checks repeatedly revealed his financial crimes conviction. The banking and real estate industries maintained strict blacklists that effectively banned him from any position involving monetary responsibility. Their attempts at reconciliation through intermediary family members were met with professional courtesy but absolute finality. I'd learned that forgiveness without consequences was enablement, and enablement was just another form of abuse. The courthouse steps where I'd watched my family led away in handcuffs became a symbol of justice, achieved through preparation professionalism and refusal to accept victimization. Sometimes the greatest gift your enemies give you is showing their true character before you make irreversible mistakes like trusting them with anything important. 18 months have passed since the courthouse doors closed on my family's criminal sentencing, and my life has transformed into something I could never have imagined during those dark moments of apparent financial ruin. The Phoenix skyline stretches beyond my new office window at Pinnacle Financial Group, where my recent promotion to Regional Director of Fraud Investigation oversees operations across Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Sarah and I married last October in a small ceremony surrounded by people who truly understand the meaning of family. Our chosen family consisted of close friends, professional mentors, and colleagues who supported us throughout the legal battle. Thomas McKenna walked Sarah down the aisle, having become both lawyer and father figure during our journey toward justice. The reception featured no blood relatives from my side, a conspicuous absence that some guests questioned until they heard our story. Family isn't determined by genetics, I explained during my wedding speech. Family is determined by loyalty, respect, and genuine love. The people in this room earned their places through character, not chromosomes. Our honeymoon in New Zealand provided perspective on how different life becomes when toxic influences are surgically removed from your daily existence. For 2 weeks, we experienced pure joy without underlying tension manipulation or guilt-driven obligations. The peace was profound and addictive. My career trajectory shifted dramatically after the successful prosecution of my family's crimes. Law enforcement agencies throughout the Southwest began consulting with me on complex financial fraud cases, particularly those involving family perpetrators. The expertise gained from my personal experience combined with my professional credentials created unique qualifications that proved invaluable in courtrooms. Speaking engagements evolved into a secondary career that generates substantial additional income while helping other fraud victims find justice. The National Association of Certified Fraud Examiners invited me to deliver keynote presentations at their annual conference, leading to consulting opportunities with major corporations seeking to improve their internal fraud detection systems. The psychology of family financial abuse follows predictable patterns. I explained to audiences of banking professionals and law enforcement officers. The perpetrators typically escalate, gradually testing boundaries and exploiting emotional manipulation before attempting major theft. Recognition and documentation are critical for building prosecutable cases. The most rewarding aspect of my new role involves training other fraud investigators in evidence-gathering techniques that withstand courtroom scrutiny. My family's case became a teaching example used in law enforcement academies and continuing education programs for financial crimes specialists. 3 months ago, I established the Trust Betrayal Victim Support Foundation, using the restitution money my family was forced to pay. Rather than keeping funds that represented their criminal behavior, I decided to transform their theft into resources for other fraud victims seeking justice. The foundation provides legal assistance, emotional counseling, and financial guidance to individuals betrayed by family members or trusted associates. Our first year helped 37 victims recover over $2 million through successful prosecutions and civil litigation. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the psychiatrist who testified in my civil case, joined our foundation's board of directors. Her expertise in family trauma helps victims process the emotional devastation that accompanies financial betrayal. Richard's case demonstrates that healing requires both justice and personal growth. She explains to our clients. The foundation's success attracted attention from national media outlets interested in family financial abuse prevention. Last month, I appeared on Good Morning America to discuss warning signs and protection strategies for vulnerable individuals. The segment generated hundreds of emails from viewers sharing their own experiences with family theft. Trust but verify became my professional motto and personal philosophy. Healthy relationships include transparency and accountability, not blind faith and exploitation opportunities. People who genuinely care about you will respect reasonable boundaries and documentation requirements. My relationship with money also evolved significantly through this experience. While financial security remains important, I now understand that true wealth includes peace of mind, genuine relationships, and freedom from manipulation. The anxiety of wondering when my family might exploit me again has been replaced by confidence in my protective systems. Investment strategies now include emotional diversification alongside financial diversification. My closest relationships are with people who've proven their character through actions, not promises. Trust is earned gradually and can be revoked permanently when betrayed. Sarah's paralegal experience proved invaluable in establishing our foundation's legal framework and operational procedures. Her attention to detail and understanding of victim psychology complement my fraud investigation expertise, creating a partnership that extends far beyond marriage into meaningful professional collaboration. Working together to help other fraud victims gives our own experience deeper meaning. Sarah explains during foundation fundraising events. Our pain became the foundation for preventing others from suffering similar betrayal. Professional recognition continued expanding throughout the year. The Arizona State Bar Association honored me with their Outstanding Contribution to Justice Award for developing innovative fraud investigation techniques. The Phoenix Police Department requested my assistance in training their financial crimes unit in family abuse detection and evidence preservation. My former family's situation serves as a cautionary tale about the long-term consequences of financial crimes. Dad's health deteriorated significantly under the stress of legal obligations and social ostracism. Mom's depression required medication and counseling, adding medical expenses to their already strained budget. Jessica's employment prospects remain severely limited by her criminal record and garnished wages. The beautiful suburban lifestyle she envisioned when planning her theft transformed into a daily struggle for basic necessities. Brandon's career never recovered, forcing them to depend on minimum wage employment and government assistance programs. Their attempts at reconciliation continue arriving through mutual acquaintances and distant relatives, usually coinciding with their financial emergencies or court-ordered payment deadlines. Each message follows similar patterns: acknowledgement of wrongdoing, followed by requests for financial assistance or loan forgiveness. My responses remain consistent and professional. I wish them well in rebuilding their lives, but reconciliation requires genuine remorse and changed behavior, not continued attempts at manipulation. Their consequences are the natural result of their choices. The peace of living without their influence cannot be overstated. Holidays become celebrations instead of emotional minefields. Financial decisions are made based on my goals and values rather than guilt and obligation. Career choices reflect my professional interests without family pressure or sabotage. During quiet moments in my new home office, I sometimes reflect on the valuable lessons learned through this painful experience. The people who truly love you will never exploit your vulnerabilities for their personal gain. Family loyalty flows both directions, not just from victim to perpetrator. Most importantly, I learned that setting boundaries and enforcing consequences isn't cruel or vindictive. It's essential self-protection that prevents continued abuse while teaching perpetrators that their behavior has real costs. 6 months ago, I received a letter from a fraud victim in Colorado who'd read about our foundation online. She'd discovered that her sister embezzled $43,000 from their mother's estate, but felt guilty about pursuing criminal charges against family. "Your story gave me permission to seek justice," she wrote. I realized that protecting myself and holding her accountable wasn't betraying family values. It was upholding them. Her successful prosecution resulted in full restitution and prevented her sister from victimizing other relatives. The ripple effects of seeking justice extend far beyond individual cases, creating deterrent effects that protect future potential victims. As I finish writing this account, Sarah and I are planning our first vacation to Europe next summer. The trip represents freedom from financial stress and family drama that once consumed our emotional energy. We'll explore ancient cities and create new memories unencumbered by toxic relationships or guilt-driven obligations. My advice to anyone facing family financial betrayal is straightforward. Document everything, seek professional guidance, and remember that real family would never exploit your trust for their personal gain. Justice isn't revenge, it's accountability. Consequences aren't cruelty, they're necessary education. The people who betray you often provide the greatest gift possible. They reveal their true character before you make bigger mistakes, like depending on them in genuine emergencies. Sometimes losing toxic family members is actually gaining freedom to build authentic relationships with people who've earned your trust. True wealth isn't just money in the bank. It's being surrounded by people who would never dream of betraying your trust, exploiting your vulnerabilities, or celebrating your pain. That kind of wealth is priceless and permanent. Have you ever experienced betrayal by someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to seek justice instead of just accepting the abuse? I'd love to hear your stories and learn how you rebuilt trust after such devastating experiences. If this story helped you recognize warning signs in your own relationships or gave you courage to seek help, please like this video and share it with others who might benefit from these lessons. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about overcoming family betrayal and building authentic relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey from victim to survivor to advocate. Remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond when they reveal their true character. Stay strong, seek justice, and never apologize for protecting yourself from people who would harm you.